Hi, Eddie.
Hi. Uh, Thank you for joining us, Alderwoman. Um, do you know Travis?
I
Fellow,
do.
okay, right. So everybody knows each other. And
Kara was one of the first people I met when I moved to St. Louis, as I tried to occupy some space at Nebula to hang out back in the day. So
outstanding.
We
So,
share a fondness for Faring Perth. Or maybe I share that with your wife. I don't remember how that went.
I'm quite fond too. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
great. And um, the well, we'd love to hear your thoughts, but you may be more interested in hearing from us. What would you like to do in this time?
Well, I suppose I thought maybe there would be some interest on your end on hearing my thoughts, but
Absolutely.
no worries if that's not the case. I know you guys are already halfway through the process at this point, so I guess maybe I'd be curious. I've watched some of the hearings. Um, and was a big proponent of establishing the Charter Commission. Worked very hard behind the scenes during the deliberations to bring everyone on board to finally pass it, and worked on some compromises on the floor of the Board of Aldermen that were contentious, as Christine could attest to. To make sure we got this done. So it was important to me. I spoke out publicly about it a lot, and was glad to see it seated. I haven't engaged other than to watch the hearings. I haven't watched all of them, but I have watched some of them. And Scott, you're the only member of the board to reach out to me, and I appreciated that, and I appreciated that conversation we had some months ago.
Mhm.
But I'm happy to help in any way.
Yeah,
So
Alderwoman, if it's helpful information, what we've done so far is just let electeds know that one of the articles that our working group is charged with is the Board of Aldermen itself. So if you have anything specific that you would be interested in changing at the board, that's helpful. But then also more broadly, other items in the charter that you think would be helpful for us to take a look at. And then I think Scott and Travis can articulate some of the things that they've been talking about, that they have an interest in presenting to the full voting membership. So if you want to start off with what you have, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
yeah, I don't
Definitely
really
love to hear that.
Yeah, with regards to the Board of Aldermen, I mean, there's some thoughts on that, but really the board is the legislative branch. I mean, my thoughts are really bigger, broader than that. I think, Scott, you and I talked a little bit about some of these things. I think that, taking a look at how the government is structured is really important. I think that having a city manager is something that doesn't necessarily need a charter change, but could be very, very helpful in establishing some consistency there. I think the way some of our departments are organized is really not very efficient or effective. Having planning bifurcated between SLDC, et cetera. I think kind of looking at the format of SLDC being a separate quasi-government entity is something that we should be looking at. The incentive structure there to approve incentives, which cost the city tax money, is an inverse incentive for that structure of that arm. And so taking a look at those things is really important. Well, I know this is probably impossible given the makeup of the Charter Commission, but I do think looking at the responsibilities of the county offices is important. I think one of the biggest concerns citizens have is with regards to our infrastructure and a lack of funding for our streets and things like that, and having, like the treasurer's office, for example, operate autonomously is really problematic for a consistent government function. Um, I just think those things are extremely problematic for a government from a structure perspective. So I'd like to look at those broader things. There's been a lot of talk about whether or not the Board of Aldermen should have the ability to add monies in the budget. If you want to know what I really think about that, I guess I see the point there, but the way the budget process is done is problematic. There are bigger problems with the budget process than that, in my view. The way that people are elected and then the short turnaround and having, and I know you all have talked about this a little bit in at least one of the commission hearings. Budgets in the city, in cities, generally speaking, are argued about at the margins. And the arguments we have are very small in nature. And what we should be focusing on is bigger picture, more visionary approaches to spending our taxpayer dollars, not spending them, investing them. And we failed to do that with a short amount of time, but also in just kind of the way in which we go about the budget. I know Travis has his hand up. I could talk for 7 days straight about things I would like to see changed about our government. So you can interrupt me at any time.
No, I just wanted to, about the county offices overlaying and intermingled and intermixed with the city functions. One of the it has come up several times, either through public comments or even just through the chart. There's some different commissioners bringing it up, and I think I remember I talked with Commissioner Crossland. This did come up previously when the charter was being re-examined in the past. The challenge is it seems like it's beyond the scope of the Charter Commission because that requires changes at within the state constitution. What are your thoughts as to the role the Charter Commission could play, or the charter itself could play in helping clean up that part of the structure?
Yeah, I think that there is some truth there, Travis, and some of that is dictated by that. But the reason why we have those county offices is because we're a city without a county, and there are some fixes that we could consider there, particularly looking at how we're governed within the broader St. Louis region. I would have liked to see this kind of include some county leadership. And you may be doing that, and I must apologize. I know you guys are all doing this from a volunteer perspective, and I first should have said, major kudos to all of you. I get paid to do my role here, and you guys don't. I mean, other Christine does, but this is a lot of work that you all took on. And so I have a lot of admiration for folks that are willing to step up and do that. But going back to your question, Travis, about those county offices, there are some fixes I think we can put in place. With having some oversight of the budgets, dictating how those are allocated. Even though the state, has some specific requirements, we have the city councilor's office at our disposal. So if what we wanted to say was, how can we stretch this to say, for example, why is it that our license collector's office has 32 employees, okay, and Kansas City's has 3? What's going on there? And is this something that we can, take some of the what administrative, what under current state law can we expound to? And I would, I wouldn't be able to speak to that specifically without some sort of legal analysis, but that would be the work I would hope we could do here. Or at least just, and recognizing those things, making recommendations, the next round, we think that these things are really important, recognizing that we have HR departments, okay, for each one of those county offices. That is in and of itself ridiculous. We have HR policies for each one of those separate departments. Totally ridiculous. And their budgets are set. They go through the Board of Aldermen, but they're not approved by us. And what does that look like? And why are we doing it that way?
Great, thank you. Yeah, because that is it. Just admittedly, when I was appointed, that was one of my first things I got excited about. I'm like, okay, how can we start looking at this layer of government? And then there was a bit of deflatedness that I felt when it seemed like that was beyond the scope. So I have, when it's brought up, I do ask, what are some thoughts as to how we can make that part of the conversation, even if it is truly, maybe outside of the true scope. So thanks for your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think there's some wiggle room there, I mean, I think we should be pressing the envelope on that. Particularly where those departments have a lot of revenue, and revenue that they're generating off city assets. I think that's enormously problematic.
Didn't mean to interrupt your flow, please. Let
Oh,
it flow.
that's okay.
Do you, and the part of our effort here is to transmit what we think is a good direction to something that goes on the November ballot and gets voted on. Just on a pure political basis, because I think one of the things that, that I first heard when I got appointed was, in general, people would be like, oh man, if you touch the county offices, you're going to, lose like it did last time. Do you think politically it's an issue?
Well, I think at this point, I mean, you all are volunteers, and so you're doing an enormous amount of work. But there hasn't been a serious amount of community or of discussion in the public about this. And we're halfway through. So I failed to see how we're going to be able to tackle really big, and some of the meetings have seemed disjointed or without clear direction that a viewer could follow. That's been my limited experience. I haven't watched them all. So I think in order to take on big issues, you would need to have a process that included a robust community from through the process directing it. And you guys would be sort of like the gatekeepers almost of like this broader conversation that would allow for subject level experts to weigh in, and have that direction. My son is upstairs. He's very excited about something.
Charter Commission probably.
Yes, he is. This is his number one birthday wish this year.
Fantastic.
He's still got charter all over him. But I mean, and I hesitate to say that because it seems like a criticism. But I'll shoulder some of that myself as somebody, as I pointed out, really supported this. You guys, I don't think as volunteer charter commissioners should have been tasked with developing the community engagement process. That's too much. Your already sort of role is to be sort of a not a gatekeeper, but almost like a set of referees, if you will, and to boil things down. But it didn't happen in a way that I think. So maybe what could happen out of this charter commission would be real strong recommendations on the next process. And I think I really was very. I was not in favor of the seating of the charter commission to happen that quickly, because I think it kind of puts you all in there wasn't enough time to really even organize it. And that's not a criticism of the sponsor of the bill either, because she really wanted to get this done and move forward. But I think maybe in retrospect, having some additional time on the front end and some recommendations for how to build the community conversation could be very, very helpful. And as Travis, kind of pointed out, these are the issues we'd like, with the county offices to say, well, if we're going to tackle these, I think that I think some recommendations could come out of this that still would require some state work. And that would be totally, I think that would be a very useful part of the process.
Alderwoman Spencer, while we have you, I'm not sure if you've seen some of the recommendations that we've been crafting out of this working group. And Scott, I wonder if you might be able to share those and just get Alderwoman Spencer's thoughts on, some of our initial direction.
Sure. Alderwoman, can you see that? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so we are tasked with 7 different sections of the charter.
Mhm.
The elections, the Board of Aldermen, initiative referendum, recall of elected officials, and we did do some outreach, a number of meetings, and I think each of the 3 members, Travis, myself, and Commissioner Riley, have met personally with lots and lots of folks as well. I mean, the one thing that's been kind of interesting, when people hear you're on the Charter Commission, you don't run out of people wanting to give you an opinion about what they'd like in St. Louis City. But
Good.
but what we came up with is that there's a number of reasons for this. I think it's driven mostly, number one here, by making it easier to vote and having more people turn out to vote.
Yeah.
And it just became clear that moving general and primary elections from March and April to August and November of even years will do that. And there's also a substantial savings as well in doing that without much of an addition to those elections costs. So we were really excited by that. And we think that those are, smart recommendations. We also think that recall, referendum, and initiative, and by the way, none of us have yet been able to recall what was a referenda that was on the ballot. So we don't know when that happens, but initiatives,
Isn't that
recall,
Prop R?
was that a referenda? No, I don't think
Is it-
so. Yeah, so none of us could come up with it, because it really is supposed to, a referenda would be to go
Be-
against the board bill, I guess.
Yeah, you're right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll push back on the recall. I think I'm the only alderman who's had several recall petitions circulated against her in recent years. Paul McKee, Lacey Clay, and the airport privatization folks, all 3 of those entities ran 3 separate recall petitions against me. And standing on the other side of that was fucking hell. Oh, excuse me. This is being taped. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, I shouldn't say Lacey Clay. That was the accusation, that the person collecting signatures, that was but the other 2 were pretty, I mean, those were accusations. So I'm speaking maybe a little more freely than I should, but
No, not at all. No.
my point is, it was horrible. And it's really tough to get quality people to want to be in public office. I do think there should absolutely be a path for recalling an elected official, and that's necessary, especially we've seen some really malfeasance happening in our city government, and we should absolutely make a path for that.
Mhm.
But, the threat of that from somebody with a lot of money on a regular basis is really intimidating. And I would just caution making it extremely easy, because my gosh, if you have single moms like me, I'm a single mom with a single income doing public service. And if I feel like, 50 voters, convinced by somebody, a big, powerful entity who I'm going to go against can recall me, I may think twice about it. I'm going to fight anybody, but I just think we could make it a very unattractive job for people, for serious people who want.
Well, that is very helpful input. Conversely though, on the initiative petition, it struck us that only, folks with substantial means or an axe to grind, or somebody with a financial advantage, is by and large, not completely, but by and large pushing those. And we thought that offering truly more grassroots proponents the ability to put things on a city ballot might be beneficial. And we share your concern about the short time frame on the Charter Commission, and we think there's probably some benefit to considering it to have some sort of ongoing mechanism. And then, of course, changing the charter amendment requirement from 60% to a simple majority. And then, of course, voting by mail and same-day voting. The one issue, you talk about recommendations to the state legislature. This does come up with a referral that we would ask the administration to undertake, and that is to move the school board elections, which could only be done by the state legislature, also to the August or November ballot. And we think then we'd have, good grounds, whether they would or not is, of course, but that would be the only item not on an August or November ballot.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think that just the recall situation should be matched. I really strongly believe we shouldn't be doing that. I think that could be largely problematic with the larger wards, maybe, but it should be matched across elected officials. I agree with you on making it easier and better for all voters. And maybe considering an ongoing charter commission. I caution against the charter amendment. We saw in recent past, funding of a soccer stadium was a charter issue that went before voters. I'm grateful that didn't get the hit the threshold. There are some serious things. I think you need to have more than a simple majority when changing the charter. But I agree with you that the referendum should have a lower threshold. I'd like to see more grassroots participation in governing. I also think as far as voting go, and I like the idea of moving the school board. And I think if we can have recommendations that the administration takes to the state legislature, we should do that across the board, including those county offices and other issues for which that would be a problem. But with voting, I also would like to see the polling places done the way of the county. And I'm not sure that's a charter issue, but really you should be able to vote at any polling place in the city. I think it's crazy that we don't allow for that.
So no matter where you live, if you worked in Tower Grove East, you could vote there even if you live in Southwest Garden or something.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely obviously be difficult with the paper ballots. So you would have to, if you are going to choose to vote anywhere, use an electronic ballot. But people that work, et cetera. I mean, some of these polling places they change, they're difficult to find. You show up at the wrong polling place, and then the one that you were assigned to last quarter, and it disenfranchises people that aren't opening their regular mail and seeing that. And I don't see the point in that.
Very good. All right. Well, that's great. And thank you, Alderwoman. And this is exactly the sort of input that's really helpful. And I certainly understand the recall, and other folks have said that as well, which we appreciate. And then on the Board of Aldermen, which was also under our work group's remit. The one thing that has been said a lot is to change it from Board of Aldermen to City Council, so that you sort of modernize that. Provide the council with the ability to increase the budget as well as decrease the budget. If the council is unable to pass a budget by July 1st of each year, you would revert to the previous year's budget, provide a legal department for the city council, so that you would have the legal firepower and legerdemain that you should maybe have now, and then perhaps look at making some portion of the council elected at large, as Kansas City and Boston and other cities have done.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that would be a healthy change. You know, I think it's really important that we have a balanced budget. So, I would really, I think that's enormously important. We have a legal department at the city council, and what I don't want to have is the divorce of the city council itself from the board of aldermen. The city council, or excuse me, the city councilor's office is what I meant. The divorce of that, should serve the board of aldermen as well. And we do have council there who has some staff. I'm not sure exactly what. We have increased our budget at the Board of Aldermen really significantly in the last year or two. I have concerns about with additional, I mean, we're a city that's running out of people. People are hemorrhaging, they're going away, our tax base is going away. So increasing the size of the Board of continuing to increase the size of the Board of Aldermen is going to have a net negative impact on our ability to deliver services at some.
Yeah. Alderwoman Spencer, we're not thinking about increasing. In fact, the at-large is one of the things that we haven't figured out a solution for yet.
Okay.
You know, the Kansas City model is there are 6 districts, but 12 elected city council members. You know, one in each district is elected at large, one is elected by the council.
Right.
If we tried to accomplish that in St. Louis, we'd be back to 28 alders again,
Right.
which is not where we want to go. So while we like the concept of the at-large in theory, we have not yet worked out what that would look like in practice. Because we agree with you, we don't want to double the size of the city council or the board of aldermen. The other thing I'd like to get your thoughts on, and I don't see it in this note.
Yeah, I left it off, Travis, inadvertently.
Okay. I thought you were staging a coup there at first, Scott. But one of the things we also are considering is having the president of the board of alders or the president of the city council elected by the body versus a citywide election. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm really cautious about that. And here's why. We have a long history, a very bad history of aldermanic courtesy. And I think many times we as elected officials, politicians in general, at every level, run in packs, the MAGA pack, all these packs. And it really disincentivizes independent thinking and independent actions. And when you have people vying for that within a body in which they're supposed to be thinking independently, I think it could be problematic. That is not to say that I'm wildly opposed to it at this point, but I think we should use extreme caution in that. I see aldermen occurring, you know, I mean, we do this as people working together, you know, trading votes and working together, but I think I'm just not sure that that is the right way to go.
And well, thank you. And what I will do is when we're done with this meeting today, tonight, or tomorrow, I'll email this to you and feel free to come back. I'll copy the other commissioners and feel free to come back with any thoughts. And I mean, you know, our work group, and I think all 3 of them are really an open door. We want to hear as much as we can and get as much input as we can. This is really valuable.
Thanks. Well, yeah, I mean, happy to help, but I'm just really grateful for your all service. I know it's not a small feat. You all did, I know some of you all knew each other beforehand, but having to kind of dig in and work on some really big concepts is a big deal. So I appreciate it.
So, and I think, and I kind of get confused on the process because that's not maybe my strong suit, and maybe I'm getting too old, I don't know. But I think what we're doing now is that the 3 work groups are coming back with their ideas as they've seen them. So this is something we will bring to our upcoming meeting and compile as a group and then begin going over them. And with the idea of begin putting them into some sort of charter language that could be put on a ballot. And then, of course, you have to figure out what could pass. I mean, there's certainly not everything. You can't have 100 things on. How does it go? But those are the sort of issues we have to figure out. I think there's a June 15th date and then a August date for final language. So, and we're scheduling a number of public hearings. We've had one at the History Museum to seek input. And then, of course, we'll come out with this. We're considering, if we can, some sort of breakout format so that our work group, for instance, in some of those meetings would have the ability to sit somewhere and people could come and talk about these specific things with us and then move to another group and talk about other specific things. So it's just not general as well. So
Sorry, Scott, is this 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 is a specific working group within the Charter Commission?
there's 3 working groups within the Charter Commission, and each one got 7 or 8 different charter sections to work.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that I was meeting with one of those groups. I thought I was just kind of having an introduction to the folks in the Charter Commission. So my apologies. I didn't know this was a focus. I haven't had any formal engagement with the Charter Commission, so my apologies. I just really, I thought this was just a general meeting. But this is obviously a working group working on elections. And then there are other groups working. I did hear at least some of that was happening. So, but I don't know how all that's worked out.
Well, I'll send you, or Christine can perhaps send you what the 3 work groups, who's on them, and what topics in the charter they're working on. We'd be delighted to.
How can I, short of watching all the hearings, be informed about what is happening with the commission itself? Is there a liaison or a person that is communicating with the board on what you're doing, or where we would best be able to plug in as alder people?
The person who was assigned to work directly with our group back to the Charter Commission is Christine, and Jake Hummel, who is the labor appointee, has also been assigned to our group. But he hasn't been going to the ongoing meetings, but the general meetings he has. But Christine is our direct conduit and helps us format and understand the format and meeting protocol and that sort of thing. And so,
But for the commission in general, can I sign up for, how do I be better informed about what the commission is doing, or how the legislators could be helpful?
would be our
Spencer, this is
good.
Chairwoman Nolan Eccles. I've just been here to listen, but to answer your question, we can add all the alderpersons to the outgoing email correspondence that the Charter Commission staff completes every month pertaining to where we are and what's next and what's going on. So we can make sure that the alderpersons are added to that email correspondence, if that helps.
That might be helpful. I don't want to take any of your additional individual time. So I don't need special attention or anything I just would, I feel very disconnected from the process. And I would like to offer my services if helpful, or thoughts, or maybe that's not necessary, but or at least be informed about what's going on. So I'm happy to be part of an email. That'd be great. I appreciate the offer.
No, happy to send that. And then, I think a number of folks have followed the actual website, and all of the documents that we are using and creating like this are being drafted, copied, put into publicly available folders, that sort of thing. So it's been pretty transparent. I don't think we've been particularly outwardly communicated from the commission, and we spent some time at our last meeting talking about just that. And I think you'll see a number of activities, press notifications and press releases summing up our work after each meeting, that sort of thing. So,
No, I've seen some of that, Scott. It's been helpful. And like I said, I've watched some of the hearings, so I appreciate all that's available online and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, it's been helpful. Well, great. Well, thank you for your work, and I appreciate you guys reaching out and making some time for my thoughts.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts. It's really appreciated.
really
Anytime.
appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
You too now. Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that was really helpful. Every time we meet with one of the elected officials, it's great to get some insights as to their perspectives on things.
Yeah. Well, although I think we, probably focused a little, as you would, on things you disagree with. It seemed like the majority of the items she was in concert with. Did it seem that way to you, Travis?
Yeah, it did. I think there's definitely some alignment and some areas of concern that she referenced.
Yeah. Well, and we've had a couple of other folks concerned about the recall of an alder or elected official as well. So, all right. Oh, it's good to hear. And Travis, I guess I'll add the provision in here, number 6, that the president of the council would be elected directly within the council. Is that going to be our recommendation? I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to take forward and have some discussion at the level.
Okay. Yeah. And we're doing this for the 19th, is that it?
Yeah, the expectation is that we put draft language available to the
Hey, Travis, you're cutting out quite a bit. Can you hear me, Travis? I'm so
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just forwarded an influence, so it's going to be losing everybody in a minute. But the plan was to have draft language 2 weeks before.
Oh, there he goes.
This is the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, I mean, it was my.
Sorry, I'm on.
Oh, yeah, great. There you are.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just jumped on an airplane. I'll be leaving soon, but language available 2 weeks before the next public meeting. So that would be the 19th or 20th.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll go ahead and update this language with, I'll add that to it and resend it to Anthony and yourself, and of course, copy Christine and any input that we have, and then we can have our final version of our recommendations for the 19th then, I guess, which is Monday.
Should we take the topic of at large off right now, just because we don't really have a structure which we would recommend at large?
Uh, the, uh,
I think the only concern I would have about that, if it's something that your working group thinks is important, this seems like the time to include it versus trying to bring it back at a later date.
Okay, so maybe we include it, and then that's part of the charter's work as we get to, or the commission's work is we get to discuss how that might actually manifest.
okay, great. I think I would agree with that version. And then I'll add the president being directly elected by the members of the council, within the council, to this. And I'm sure that'll foster, both of those will foster plenty of input and debate. All right. Travis, is there anything else you wanted to go over?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Great.
I have to jump off here, the plane's boarding, or I'm
All right,
on.
travel safe, Travis. Thank you. All right. So, yes, ma'am.
The last man standing, Commissioner Intagliata.
Survivor. The,
Commissioner Tagliata, I have a few questions for you.
yes, ma'am.
Do you have, I see that you're taking the leadership on creating the summary for your work group. And I would just want to say thank you for doing that and making sure that you guys have a presented and an organized summary that included all commissioners. So I wanted to make sure that I said thank you for that. And I also wanted to see or talk about what your process would be for you submitting to the Charter Commission staff the summary. Are you going to complete or create a PDF for it, Word document, Google document? Is everyone, well, obviously your work group is in alignment with all the things that are listed as recommendations, but are you going to, is it a summary form or are these actual recommendations per the articles that you all were assigned?
These are actual recommendations per the articles. So the 7 articles that we were assigned, these were the most important items that we pulled out and had feedback on.
Right. If you could, the articles that your work group found were the most pertinent to address, if you could list the recommendations under the article number and name in which you submit to the Charter Commission staff, that would be great for all of us to be in alignment across all the work groups. So we're
Very good.
taking your leadership on how we are moving forward across the board. I'm going to be attending all the work groups, including my own, to make sure we're on the same page with the process.
Good. And does the content in here, is that what you envisioned, Jasmine?
I didn't have a vision for it specifically. My goal was to just foster enough inclusion for everyone to have their own vision on what it looks like. And it looks like we've all done that, and it's kind of melting together nicely, in my opinion. So it wasn't my vision or anybody in particular's vision. We wanted to see how it naturally took its form because we're all very different people. But it seems to be coming together in just the way that you all's work group has formulated across the board. So I think that because you have specific articles that have gotten the attention of the people and the city personnel and you all, that you have a core basis on what your work group's recommendation would be and what you would focus on for the rest of the next 6 months. And I think that helps with some of the unease, like you heard from the alderperson, about what primary areas we're focusing on. I think being here helps to see that we definitely do have a concentrated focus per work group that has taken priority. that I think will help move the process into what we are engaging the public on. So I think for you guys, elections is going to be a big deal. And the Board of Aldermen structure is going to be a big deal. But pertaining to the people's focus in public hearings, they've been concentrated on elections. So I think that it's taken a vision of its own that's kind of beyond all of us individually.
Good. All right, well, I will add the articles that the various items here directly address and update the document. I will add the provision that Travis and I just spoke about, and I'll update that probably tomorrow, or the next day, and let my fellow commissioners, Travis and Anthony, make sure they're fine with it, and then we'll submit before the weekend.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you. Really appreciate you attending our work group.
No problem.
All right, very good.
Have a good
Christine,
evening.
anything else?
No, thank you.
Have a great evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.